Why, hello, it is I, Chris Brogan, and welcome to this, our episode of The Brief for Saturday, October 28th, 2017. This show is made very much the same way. I take a lot of stories and trends and ideas that I find that are interesting and that may or may not relate to your business or your life in some way, and I share them with you. If you want to look along, you can go to chrisbrogan.com/CBM to check out all the stories for yourself. You never have to take my word for it. You can walk through it all by yourself. You don't need me to read to you. But if you like it this way, then I give it to you this way. I make this show using a software that is made by a couple friends of mine, and I happen to work with this company these days. If you want to do the best way to do Facebook Live on a Mac, use Ecamm Live. Pretty cool, right? Totally worth checking out. So let's get to the very first story of the day. This is shared by my buddy John Ackley, who sent this along. He said, it turns out that there are cryptocurrency miners exploiting WordPress sites to mine for Bitcoins and the like. Not necessarily Bitcoin specifically, but in general, there are these people out there who are mining for cryptocurrency using your computer. And I never had seen that before. So you might want to swing by chrisbrogan.com/CBM just to check out that link, just so you get a sense of what's going on. Hello, Mr. Raul Colon. Good to see you. Hope everything's going well. Say hi to your entire gang over there. The story, like I said, was brought to you by John Ackley, a friend of mine who sent it along. So I just saw this, and this was kind of interesting. There's an artificial intelligence chatbot that wants to be like you. This is a company called Replica with a K. You can go to replica.ai, and you can sign up, because there's a bit of a waiting list, to get a chatbot that tries to basically learn everything it can about your conversation style and your mannerisms, and then it can imitate you. So you can set it free on the world and have it act as if it's an agent for you. It doesn't have to actually be your same name or anything like that. There doesn't have to be any kind of deception involved. But you can have this AI-trained chatbot that you help educate it to communicate on your behalf, should you want such a thing. I signed up just because I want to see what that's about. It sounds like a pretty crazy opportunity just in general for companies to sort of human train their customer service chatbots and things like that. In healthcare news, that's quite interesting. CVS is looking to acquire Aetna Healthcare. So what makes that interesting is that a lot of times these insurance acquisitions aren't really going through very well because they're not being allowed because that there might cause too much competitive challenges. There might be a problem with pricing structure situations if two healthcare companies acquire each other. But something like a CVS drugstore acquiring a healthcare company is called vertical acquisition, and it is becoming a little bit more opportune that kind of acquisition can happen. And so what's happening is that companies are sort of structuring their businesses around the customers they serve, which is different than how we used to talk about and how we used to do business. And so that's what I find interesting. And there's a couple more stories like that in that theme. Microsoft has just reported that they've just hit $20 billion in cloud computing money. That's Satya Nadella, the CEO. What makes that interesting is that Microsoft, for the very longest time, has only really gotten its revenue through Windows and Office, and then a little bit from some of the other pieces of the puzzle. But this is the first time that their cloud computing went past $20 billion. And that's what they've been working for a while, as they know that other areas are going to fall away and be a little less powerful. Windows shuttered their support of Windows Phone, for instance. They're not number one in the gaming system world with Xbox, although they're doing reasonably well. But their acquisitions are really kind of moving around to show that they're out there supporting very specific types of customers. And that idea of sort of supporting the vertical is what makes that interesting. Similar but strange news in sort of how do we support our customer instead of hold really steadfast to our belief of what our company is. McDonald's has given up on two of its biggest tenets, which is so strange. The idea that they had to be the fastest in the business and the idea that they had to have the cheapest product in the business has fallen away, and they are up and up and up in value. Their stock is up. They reported something like 4% revenue growth, all because they decided to, instead of just have dollar products, have $1, $2, and $3 products and the pick twos and all that sort of thing. And now they're focusing on deliverability. They're focusing on faster order kiosks. They're changing around different pieces of the system, not on speed and not on cost. And that's changing the way they do their business. What I like about the story is it makes you think, what do people really want from my business? What are they really hoping to attain and why. And maybe it's not the thing I think I sell. Maybe I need to adjust myself and kind of move forward in a different direction. Sorry, I had to clear my throat. Speaking of changes, Deloitte predicts that this might be the year that e-commerce outperforms in-store spending for the 2017 retail holiday season. That's of note because there are a lot of interesting options there with regards to, we've said for a really long time e-commerce is biting into retail. We've said for a long time that companies don't know how to blend these two things. But to point out that they're saying that now this is going to be the first year that e-commerce goes past I'm on to my next story. This is when the e-commerce goes past that level, you're going to have that problem. The interesting story there, I guess, is that as we try to follow and figure out where our customers, what they want, where they are, again, it might not be physical locations. It might be some other piece of the puzzle. On the McDonald's story, Raul points out, and I agree with him, if only they had a vegan option. I think they're trialing vegan options in London. And they've occasionally put some pretty not pleasant veggie burger products on the platform, but they're not really set up for it right now. I hope they move that way towards it. Again, the way businesses are changing are interesting. There's a lot more freelancers in the world. Hey Gareth, this particular article is saying that there's a bunch of rights and requirements afoot, request for changing the way we do freelancing, and maybe possibly looking for some regulation in the freelance world, because now with over 35% of the workforce being made up of freelance employees, they're saying that they want to know that they're going to be paid on time, which is not always optional, healthcare and regulations, all kinds of other benefits, and also legal protections. There's a lot of things that are stacked against being a freelancer. And again, with 30+% of the industry pointing towards people doing freelance work, it's time to start looking at, should we regulate this a little bit more? Should we add a few more laws to protect freelancers? I, of course, support that. But also, what else can companies do to make it easier or maybe even not easy to do some kind of work in that story, and how are they going to move that forward? Moving on to a whole other set of topics. This is related to the workforce as well, though. Evidently, demanding a bachelor's degree for a middle-skilled job is just plain dumb. So what they're saying is that, right now in the workforce, especially in the U.S., college grads aren't exactly growing on trees anymore. But what they're saying is that a lot of what businesses were asking for bachelor's level degrees for was just to sort of emulate the breadth of skill. And they were saying that they wanted to have people have college level degrees to sort of emulate or mimic experience, because otherwise bringing a fully inexperienced person into most company environments was causing a lot too much problem. But now, as time is moving on, as there's a lot of changes going on in the way that we're doing business and all that sort of a thing, it may not be that a college degree stands up as the reason why someone should or shouldn't work someplace. Should you be much more skilled and prepared and ready to slide into a business? Absolutely. The absolute lack of skill compared to the jobs that are available right now is massive. There's so many jobs laying fallow because there's not people able and competent enough to actually handle them. And I think that that's not going to be solved by college. That's going to be solved by you building up your capabilities. That's an important change. YouTube has reported a very interesting milestone of their own. They now have users watching 100 million hours per day on TV. So right now, YouTube is, for a little while, been over 1 billion hours of video served a day. 1 billion hours of video served a day, but now 100 million of those hours are being served on TVs. What makes that interesting is that this is now not laptop in the corner kind of viewing. This is set-top box in the living room kind of stuff. This is taking over what people were using their television for in the mainstream. And so that becomes interesting, because as they're saying that, they're saying just more and more volume of people are turning to YouTube as a primary source of entertainment. And speaking of that, I want to turn to YouTube. I found this person through an article. I found her work was awesome. Her YouTube channel is called Made You Look. And I think her first name is Erin, but I don't know. And what she does is she comes up with cool makeup ideas and does makeup tutorials for various characters. So, for example, I will show you. I'll zoom in on one of them. Halloween season is upon us. She has a makeup tutorial for being Coraline, the Neil Gaiman character. So she's that's her before the makeup, which is fascinating in its own right. But then as you look at it, it just seems to me that, she's got a really cool process of putting this all together. So let's see, get my hands on the controls. I can back it up just a tiny bit. This is her getting ready, but this is her in her Coraline costume. So she's mimicking the character of the famous Leica stop motion animated Coraline special. That'd be that. So, that's part of me always wanting to share with you stuff like cosplay. I think cosplay is really interesting. I found an article that really covers one of the reasons why I think cosplay is kind of cool. I don't dress up like anybody. The best I ever do is, sometimes on Halloween I'll dress up like Thor when I'm taking my kids out for trick-or-treating. But for the people who dress up, there's some reasons behind it. One is that cosplay cultivates confidence. This article in Signpost is a really good article about what people get from it. It's a big interview with all different kinds of people who choose to dress up for various Comic-Cons and science fiction conventions. And you can stretch that into Halloween. These people spend on average from $100 to $400 per costume. The emphasis, of course, is on homemade costumes. A lot of times the fun is sort of to gender swap the costume and make something new and different out of it. Try to make something that goes beyond the pale. And that's what I've been sharing a lot of is, situations where people are not playing to type and that they're, picking out costumes that matter. But the reason I do is because it's one of these things that inspires confidence and creativity. And I think that's worth sharing. That's it. That's all the stories I got for you today. If, as always, you want to go and check these stories out for yourself, go to chrisbrogan.com/CBM. You don't have to just listen to my blather and prattle. You can click all the links yourself. You can go walk through and find all of these things and see what you think is interesting. See which of this applies to your business in some way. The whole idea is that I teach people how to use tech to drive better human interaction. These stories have some piece of that puzzle for you. Go figure out which ones mean the most to you. Thanks so much for your time. If you've got a story you want to contribute, just send it to chris@chrisbrogan.com or connect with me on whatever platform you know how to reach me on. It's all good by me. Happy to see you. Talk to you later. Goodbye. Merry Christmas.